Hello, welcome back to the Mr. Arsenal podcast for part two of our celebration of a double winning team from 1971. As you can see, all the guests are here on time. We were running a bit late, but we're here now. As you can see, we're joined by the regulars, people who've been on the channel before, Melvin, Richard, who have helped get this sorted. Part one of this celebration is over on Richard's channel, by the way, so you want to go and check that out later on. He had Tom Watt, Melvin, and they did their thing basically of what we're about to do tonight. And obviously, you can see Martin, who's been on it before, and who did a Who Am I quiz. How you doing, Martin?
Badly, by the way, very badly.
I only just made it again tonight. Got a little problem with modern technology, but anyway, thanks to Melvin, I'm here. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And actually, you can also see we were joined by one of the members of that famous season, Sammy Nelson. How you doing, Sammy Nelson?
He's not there.
He is there. Has he pressed his button that says tap?
Sorry, what was the question?
No, I'm just saying, how are you? Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah. Well,
he's nearer the equator than everybody else.
There's a bit of there's a bit of breaking up. Ask me a question, or did anybody?
I was about to say, guys, this is going to be open floor, basically, give you sort of your memories of that season, and obviously got one of the men themselves here. Ask him any questions you want to ask him as well, based on that season, and also in the chat, anyone that wants to ask panel questions as well, feel free. But yeah, Martin, go ahead. Yeah,
I've got a question for Sammy. Sammy, for the Tottenham game, the last game of the season. I know John Samuels was the substitute. Were you at the ground?
Shame.
Can you hear me, Sam? Maybe I'll put that in a chat to Sammy. Sammy, can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up if you can.
I was there, Martin.
Yeah, I know, mate. It was brilliant. As I say, I remember that John Samuels was a substitute on the night, I think. But I wondered if Sammy might have been part of the travelling squad. Was he, not so much on the bench as it were, but was he in the stands? But I'm not sure you can hear me.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is it possible to get a note to Sam?
The private chat should be open, so if you can. Yeah, if you want to ask.
Okay.
Someone puts it in the private chat. They can. He should be able to see it.
Okay. Right. I'll do that.
But whilst sorting that
quick
out.
Story. You mentioned John Samuels, Martin. Do you want a quick story?
Yeah. Please.
Okay. After the game at White Hart Lane, I was lucky enough to go into the changing room with the players, and amongst all the celebrations, one of the most poignant memories I've ever had, all the years, 70 years of following Arsenal and many years of knowing so many of the players, particularly this team, of course. In one corner of the changing room, John Samuels was sitting amongst all the celebrations. I can still picture him with a navy knee-length raincoat on, and his head bows and tears streaming down his eyes. And it wasn't, John Samuels was a genuine lifelong Arsenal fan in childhood. And as everyone knows, he'd had a good career at Arsenal, but in the double season, he didn't get that many games. And he told me afterwards that he knew that he'd never play for the club again. He was going to be joining Leicester for the next season, which he did. And he was inconsolable. And that stuck with me more than all the celebrations or anything else, because he was such an Arsenal man, John Samuels. And it was really quite heartbreaking. And he was pleased for the lads, but just broken-hearted for himself, and particularly knowing that he'd never play for the club again as well. But that was just a quick one with John Samuels, who's a smashing guy.
That is sad. I count myself lucky that I saw his last goal at Crystal Palace when we won 2-0 on the way to that double in March. I think that was his last ever first team goal.
Your memory's a lot better than mine, but
came off someone's backside and went in the goal, but he claimed it, that's for sure, as I would have done.
Well, they all count, as they say. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he was a lovely footballer, very elegant, with a stinging shot, and enormously great vision across the pitch. He was one of my heroes, definitely growing up.
Yeah, the
sure.
problem was with Sammy, Mark, that he was too sensitive. When the crowd got on his back, it affected him greatly. Caused him to lose confidence, and that was a little bit of that, what they talk about, mentality in players the whole time. He obviously had a good mentality because he had a good career, but his sensitivity made it very difficult for him to live with the Arsenal boo boys, I'm afraid, and it had an impact on him and his performances. So, but he had a very good career at Arsenal, of course, and of course he scored against Anderlecht in 1970. Even I remember that one.
Yeah.
And so he's got great memories, and he still loves the club. I've seen him a few times over the years, and his love for the club is undiminished. So that's John Samuels, great guy, really nice guy.
There's always a story to counterbalance all the excitement that went along with those special moments, that last week particularly.
No, that's right. There's loads of stories. I mean, the whole season was one long story.
Yes,
you
on the coach with the rest of the guys. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you now, Sam.
Yeah, fine, Sammy, yeah.
Did you hear my original question, Sammy? Can you still hear us? I think he's got a bad connection down there.
Yeah, I typed it in the private chat, so that must be a bit delayed.
Very windy on the south coast.
Yeah, too right. Yeah, see, it's giving him a parting right in the middle of his hair. So tell me, of those that are on the pod tonight, who was at White Hart Lane?
Me.
And me. And Melvin.
I was there. Yeah.
Melvin.
Yeah.
No, I'm to school to get there.
Vintage, Ryan and Richard. So I
for
that.
I was 2.5 years old, so unfortunately I wasn't there.
Yeah,
but
you've got a reasonable excuse.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, I don't even think I was aware it was happening at the time, unfortunately. But I've obviously spent a lot of time studying it since, and obviously one of the I was talking about it last night. Actually, it's one of the kind of, I know it's nothing I could have done about my age, but it's a time when I wish I'd been a bit older and I could have experienced that whole season actually, because it sounds like it was an incredible time to be an Arsenal fan after all those years of not winning anything and then winning a Fairs Cup and then the double. I mean, for you guys, that must have been just an incredible couple of years, really, mustn't it? Having suffered in the 60s when, Tottenham were winning things and we were struggling, and to kind of come out of that with that team that we had, I mean, that would have been, I'm sure that was, I mean, I don't know, obviously I didn't experience it, but for me, I don't think there could have been a lot that even since then, and we've had some great times since then, but is that the best kind of season that you guys have experienced as Arsenal fans, do you think?
I'll let the boys.
Well, yeah, I don't want to keep taking the questions, but the catalyst for the double season, of course, was the winning of the Fairs Cup and the confidence that instilled and the belief it instilled into that team. And for my generation, I'm not sure. I know Martin's a few years younger than me, and Melton also, but at that point, I'd been 17 years an Arsenal fan. I vaguely remembered them winning the league in 1953. So for that breakthrough against Anderlecht, it was massive. We talk about White Hart Lane twice and all the usual, Anfield, but that Anderlecht, although of course it was only the Fairs Cup compared with winning league titles and premierships, that was the most special moment after 17 years that we can actually claim a trophy again. And that for me, probably, if I have to even go with Anfield, where I was fortunate enough to be, and all the other massive achievements that we've had in the years, that was the moment that meant everything. And that's how important that night was, to try and put it in perspective. The night of White Hart Lane, excuse me, it's very hard to separate that and Anfield. I mean, just been blessed really over all the years to see so many incredible achievements from Arsenal. But the the Anderlecht game was very much up there, or even slightly more important than winning the league at Tottenham. To put it in perspective, from my viewpoint, I don't know how others feel about it. Any others got comments on that were maybe a similar age to me at both games?
I went there. I didn't sit with my father or Joey. As you know, Joey obviously passing. But at the end of the game, I rushed down to where they sat. I took out my pocket a few bottles of baby sham. Because that's all I could.
Brilliant.
That's all I could smuggle into the ground. And we opened up the baby sham, the three of us, and had a good drink on that. There wasn't a lot of it, but we enjoyed every drop of it. It was fantastic. Yeah, it was phenomenal. And it was, as you say, for me, not so much for you, Martin, for me, I've never seen us win anything. I've never seen us get past the fifth round of the FA Cup before that season. So to win the Fairs Cup, it was a very, very big thing. You must have remembered, Martin, when we played Liverpool 2 years running in the fifth round. And they beat us up twice. I thought, I'm never going to see this Arsenal team get past the fifth round. It's never going to happen. And all of a sudden to win the Fairs Cup, and then the next season the double, I just couldn't believe it. It was fantastic. And so many homegrown players as well. So many homegrown players. It was very, very good.
Yeah, a bit more perspective on that one. I know we're meant to be talking about the double season, but going back to the Fairs Cup, of course, that we lost the 2 League Cup finals, particularly losing to Swindon, the humiliation. And I know how the players felt about that. And Frank McClintock and John Samuels, I was with them when they said they're going to ask for a transfer. We was talking about it. They couldn't, they wanted to go to a more progressive club. So after those 2 disappointments, particularly the humiliation, as I said, of Swindon, to then go the next year and win the Fairs Cup, puts a little bit more perspective in it. But the double season is phenomenal. And where do you start? So somebody else start talking about it. Otherwise, I'm talking too much.
All I can remember is that Fairs Cup season. It sort of mirrors this season because we finished 12th that particular season in 1969-70, which was a poor season, all things considered. Even though we bloodied a lot of players during that season. Sammy, you made your debut during that season, home to Ipswich in October, and we went downhill from there.
Yeah.
No, we didn't, obviously. But it gave us the opportunity to see people like Sammy, people like Eddie Kelly, people like Ray Kennedy, even Peter Marinelli, George, and we began to see a new Arsenal. And there are parallels. I won't go any further than that. There are parallels with the current season, which could end up a very, very good season. Okay, so I'm not looking at this with a direct correlation, but when you look at how we can springboard, as we did in 1969-70 to the double, there are possibilities and there are similarities there. So I'm quite excited by the current team. But we'll get back to 1970-71, and I can say that I missed one home league game that season. In fact, one home game at all, which we beat Ipswich Town 3-2 after being 3-0 up and coasting, and we ended up hanging on grimly. And although I wasn't well during that latter part of the season, I ended up missing the 2 semi-finals against Stoke because I was in hospital at the time. I did go to a lot of those cup ties, and I was only 15 at the time, so travel wasn't simple in those days. I ended up going the following season to more games, but it was a wonderful time to become a travelling member of the Arsenal away family, and getting on the train to go down to Portsmouth, although not terribly far, was a dream. It was one of my most exciting away games, but not as exciting as Yeovil, which I ended up going down to on the midweek because the game on Saturday was postponed. I did have a ticket for the Saturday game, which we were allowed to keep over, obviously, for the following Wednesday. But I was at school. I was 15. In fact, I was 14 at the time, I think. And I bunked off school with 2 friends of mine, and we were behind the goal. We went in school blazers. That's all we had. I had a sort of rucksack to take with me, and I was behind the goal. And I was on Match of the Day. It was black and white, but there were 3 of us behind the goal. me and two fellas, Mick Harris and Stevie Walters, and there we were on Match of the Day, unknown to us that we were on TV for that split second that we always are in the crowd. Okay, it's a second or two if you're lucky. And we didn't think anything of it. We knew nothing about it. We bunked off school. I told terrible lies to my parents that I was staying overnight at a friend's house. And it was only next morning when we got back, because it was like the old milk trains in those days. So we waited hours in Yeovil to get a train back to Paddington. Very happy that we'd won the game 3-0. And then walked into school in the afternoon, hoping that I would just, I suppose, just smooth my way in and be unnoticed. Until everyone started clapping. And of course, everyone had seen a glimpse of us with our blazers behind the goal. It didn't do me any good at the end of the day. The cane was the instrument of torture from my headmaster, but it wasn't nearly as bad as what I got from my dad when I got home. So that was my recollection of Yeovil away 3-0. Two brilliant headers from John Radford and a tap in from Ray Kennedy after the keeper had spilt it. But it was a great moment, and it was my most exciting away game up to that point. But anyway, that's my recollection of Yeovil on the start of the trip.
Yeah, I did those two trips, Martin. Just to go back to what you said a moment ago about the current team, the correlation, and the 71 team. I've had the same thoughts as well. And mentioning and reminding everyone, in case you didn't know, is that 10 of our 17-man squad, were, including Sammy, of course, were homegrown players. Homegrown from the Arsenal youth system. And we all know what that means. George Graham had something similar when he came back to manage the club, loads of homegrown players. And another thought on that season, incidentally, like you, I saw nearly all the games. I saw all the home games. I think I missed maybe 4 away games, or all the other games as well. But you need luck, don't you, in everything. You know, when you reflect upon winning things and things that could have gone wrong, games you might have lost, penalties you got that maybe weren't a penalty. That season, something nearly happened which could have actually prevented the double season happening. And what that was, that early in the season, probably about September or October, Arsenal tried to sign Bobby Hope from West Brom. They didn't succeed. West Brom didn't sell him. Don Howe was the link there, obviously, with Arsenal and West Brom. Now, had Bobby Hope have signed, the likelihood is that Arsenal would not have won the double, because somebody would not have made the breakthrough that played a big role in eventually doing it. So, you know, things like that, when you reflect on them, can change everything that happened, can change history, in fact. So Arsenal not signing Bobby Hope probably helped us towards the double. Loads of other thoughts, but I'm talking too much. I think there's others there that haven't really had an opportunity, maybe, if they were around for the double team, to make their contributions, because they're endless. I could talk for hours about that team and about various games and situations and circumstances. It was a roller coaster ride. You know, we lost 5-0 to Stoke early on. Who would have backed Arsenal to win the league? No, but they showed their character and went on a big winning run. Similarly, in the early part of the 71 year, I think they lost 3 away games on the trot. I think Liverpool and Derby were 2 of them, but then they bounced.
Huddersfield,
Huddersfield, yeah.
Huddersfield, well done, yeah. Well, you're younger than me, your memory's a bit sharper. So, yeah, so there's a million things. You know, anybody else got any thoughts about anything specific in that season?
Sam, what about you, mate?
Sam, what was your first game that season?
Who, me?
Yeah,
Martin.
Yeah.
My first game.
How are you, Sam?
Well, can you hear me okay, yeah?
It's hit and miss, Sammy. Bit like
the first game I came on for was against Tottenham. Yeah.
The 2-0.
Good. On the 2-0 at Highbury, Geordie Armstrong scored 2. That's right. But the funny thing was, I was your old friend, Martin Wengro, Peter Story. What happened in the first game of that season against Everton? What they did, normally the fullbacks would have been Peter and Bob McNabb. But because Alan Ball was playing for Everton, Don Howe wanted to put man-to-man marking on Alan Ball, so he moved Peter Storey to midfield to pick up Bally and brought Pat Rice in at right back. And, you know, it was a good result, 2-2, but Charlie broke his ankle in that game. And unfortunately, Ricey got the hump because they left Pat out and moved Peter Storey back to right back and had Peter Marinelli as the to come on in the first team. But Ricey was to become sub. And what happened was after the game, they realised that it was a much better system with Peter Storey in midfield and holding it with a bit of clout in there. And it worked out. So you think he played, I think, about 41 league matches, Peter Storey. And the game that he missed, can you tell me what game it was?
Yeah.
Any of you?
Tottenham.
What game did Peter Storey missed in the league?
Tottenham. Win the league.
Any of you? No? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Tottenham.
Peter missed one game, and that was against
Tottenham.
Tottenham on that last league match. And then,
I didn't know that. Wow.
And then I know that, but what I'm saying was that it's just, you're talking about swings and roundabouts. And I just feel that they got a diamond. They got a diamond when they moved Peter to midfield. And later on, when you think that Charlie was injured, Peter Simpson had damage to the cartilage, and John Roberts was in. So they did really well to build up. And I actually, you know, some of the games I was substitute, you know, and you weren't always used to come on. It was usually if somebody was injured. But I was actually substitute when they lost 5-0 at Stoke. So perhaps it was quite a good game not to come on.
Yeah.
But, you know, having said that, a few days later, they played Ipswich in a League Cup replay. And I think beat Ipswich 4-0 or 5-0. So they got that out of their system and got back on the road again. So there was lots of pluses come out of that. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, you know, the biggest plus over that year was, you know, the emergence of Ray Kennedy, Eddie Kelly, and Charlie. And it was amazing, you know, but anyway, anybody, if you want to enlighten me with some other information, please do.
Right, I think a couple of us might know this answer. I mean, Martin will definitely know. Martin Levy. A player played in 2 home games consecutively against the Arsenal Highbury and got beat 4-0 twice. You know who it is. Does anyone else have a guess? Does Sammy know who it is?
I know who it is.
What was that again?
Must have been a Man United player.
No, not Man United. A team, some player played for a team at Highbury. We beat them 4-0. We get transferred to another team. Our next game was against his new team. And we beat them 4-0 again.
No.
So he turned up twice.
Is it the one I said to you yesterday, Melvin?
Yeah, well, you were right, yes. Give up?
Yep.
Newton, Henry Newton. He went from Forest to Everton.
Everton, wasn't it? One of them?
Everton,
Yeah.
Forest to start with, then he signed for Everton.
They can hear me anymore.
We beat Everton 4-0, they were the champions.
That's right. Yeah.
They were current champions.
Yeah, Sammy, we can still hear you, by the way.
Oh, good. That's all right.
Yeah, that's cool. Also there's a few comments in the chat. There's a couple of questions from Neil I'll get to in a second, but PG in the chat's also saying Leeds are still complaining about the West Brom goal.
Perfect goal. Perfect goal.
Yeah, that was an incredible decision from the referee and the linesman between them, wasn't it? It's unbelievable. What about VAR?
VAR only need it.
I think VAR would have still given it. VAR would have still given it.
Melvin, it wouldn't because it benefited us. They definitely wouldn't have given it.
Yeah.
Conspiracies and all that, yeah. Neil in the chat has got a few questions. First one is, who was the toughest player you lads faced in that 71 season?
In that season, I think there were quite a lot of top players. I think that, there's maybe a few in Leeds, a few in maybe Liverpool. There were always a couple of, hatchet men. Even people like, you played at Southampton, they had a few really, they could put it about. And, one that you wouldn't think was dirty, but was filthy, was Terry Payne. And if you can remember Terry Payne, he was a right winger. And he was a nasty bit of work. He was a bit like Mike Summerby. Mike was very competitive, as they say, but he did like to go over the top and leave his mark. So all the teams, there wasn't one
Sammy,
team that did.
I know somebody who did that. I know a left back that used to do that as well.
I want names. Give me a name. Peter Story.
No names. Sammy was as hard as anybody. Thank God I was the right winger. That's all I can say. He was a really strong tackler. Nasty with it, weren't you, Sam? Good luck, mate.
Well, no, I think it was just, I just tried to please the fans. You see, you have to. You fellas have paid a lot of money to come and watch and get results and see us try to get results, and it doesn't always happen. And when you don't get a result, the players are just as disappointed as the fans. And as well, from my point of view, it could be quite upsetting. It ruins your whole weekend, and until the next game. So there were lots of players that you wanted on your team. And we had those in abundance in the double year. And the competitiveness and the will to win was immense. And it gradually, the momentum just built and built and built. And if you can remember the games, I think we played, was it Stoke City and Burnley? I think we won 1-0. And they were really hard games. You wouldn't say it was the best football, but exciting in the sense that the tension was there. We had to win the game. And, to get the goals and hit the 2 points as it was then was absolutely fantastic. And, the game, when I go back and think about how we played so well leading up to the Stoke City game, and to lose 5-0, and you think to yourself, 5-0 against Stoke City, you just wouldn't have. It looked as if we had gone bent to lose 5-0. It was just ridiculous. I don't know if any of you went to the game. Did you all? Yeah, it was. No, it was. I mean, it was probably a good game to miss.
I think everything went wrong. Stoke were a good team, Sammy. I think you think about Stoke as being one of the lower teams, but they, like many teams in that first division, they were a strong side with a lot of good players. And of course, we had the 2 semi-finals against them as well, which which we so nearly went out. So they were a good team, and but nothing went right for us that day. We couldn't.
They were good. They were good. There were some very good players in their team, but we always would have fancied ourselves against any of those teams. I think when you realise we had a squad of 17, and everybody, they fitted in. And they went into positions where it was quite ironic that one of the games we played early in the season, because of injuries, we played Chelsea and we lost 2-1. And we had the 4 fullbacks, Pat Rice and Bob McNabb were fullbacks, and Peter Story and I were in midfield, central midfield. And it was a really good game, and we were very unlucky to lose. But it was trying to fit in and do your best for the team. And to be honest, I think we showed a lot of mettle in that particular game. We really did, and very disappointed to have lost that game. But the team came back well, and when you had people like Charlie coming back after his broken ankle, and some of the goals that he scored, it was immense. It really was.
Sammy, were you there in Rome when we had that little altercation after the game with Lazio?
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually one of the guys we were just talking about, Ray Kennedy. Normally with those games, after the game, you'd have a banquet and got a lovely presentation of a leather wallet that was, sort of nicely gold leaf, Lazio versus Arsenal in September, whatever it was, 1970. Got the presentation, lovely meal in the restaurant, came out and to get on the coach. And I walked out with Ray Kennedy. We were first out and we were standing in the street. And and I said to Ray, just chatting, I said, those four guys, they don't look too happy. And one of them was the centre half that was marking Ray. And obviously, Ray must have given them a couple of digs during the game because he took plenty from this centre back as well. So they walked towards us, and it was a bit like high noon. So the four of them came up, and as the centre half walked towards Ray, was to my right. The centre half walked up, and he's tried to knee Ray in the Watsits. And Ray's got hold of him and smashed him, knocked him back on the ground. And the other guys, they didn't know what to do. So I had my fists up ready, and they just backed off. But at that, the rest of the team came out down the steps of the restaurant. The Italian players, they came out. Next thing, there was all sorts of scuffles and fights and that. And I can recall one guy, I think John Woodward, his name was, and Woody got thrown over like a Fiat 500. He went screaming across this car. And, it was built up out of nothing. And within minutes, then the police had arrived, and Bertie Mee was going mad and trying to get us to get on the coach. And of course, the Italians were saying it was all because we had too much to drink. In fact, we didn't, and it was great because they intimidated the team right from the very first minute in the stadium, and their fans were absolutely lethal. They were even spitting at us, trying to, as you come up the transparent panel, they were leaning up against it and spitting. It was really quite violent, but I suppose you have to adapt. And but as I say, Ray sorted the guys out, and it shouldn't have developed anything further. And I mean, Ray's a very useful fellow to have around you. Put it like that. I've been in a few places with him, and in a few matches as well. And I've never, ever, ever seen anybody do anything to him and not get one back. If they attempted to do anything to him, eventually he would bring a calling card to them before the 90 minutes was up. But a really good fellow to have in your team, put it like that.
Yeah, not a bad player.
Oh, he was fantastic. One of the best. It's a shame, really, that he left. He left us to go to Liverpool. Yeah. But that was another case where, they thought, Bertie Mee thought better. And, then we signed Brian Kidd, and we had Brian for a couple of seasons. He wasn't going to stay any longer. He was going to head back up north. And again, it was a real shame. But, but what I haven't heard you mention, you're talking about the double team and how they won that league and everything else was amazing. And then I saw the photograph, the team photographed the squad with the trophies, and there was Don Howard was the coach, but you don't realize Don left immediately afterwards. He didn't stay for the 71-72 season. He left to go to West Bromwich, and he took George Wright, the physio, with him, Brian Whitehouse, another coach. So you're starting to get people leaving the club when we had a good base, good coaching set up and everything else. And then you have to try and get the confidence of a new coach. And we had Steve Burtonshaw. He stepped up from the reserves, and he was a good coach. But Don had the respect of all the players, and he was a big miss. So much so that when Terry Neal was manager, he was struggling, and eventually the best signing that he did was bringing Don Howard back, and I think it was in '77, August '77, and the next few years were great for us again. So although we should have maybe won more, but we didn't. But that was a sad thing that Don left the club to go to West Bromwich. And as far as I was concerned, he was a great coach, but I don't think he was management material. It's a different kettle of fish entirely.
Yeah. Can I just make an observation while I'm thinking about, we're talking about things and we've spoken about things that have changed the season. We're going back to that first game against Everton where bad luck transformed the season probably. The bad luck was Charlie George, I think, was it a broken ankle, Sammy, that he got?
Yeah.
And of course, right. Charlie and John Trafford had developed a good partnership together. They were gelling very well. But of course, what happened with Charlie breaking his leg, it let Ray Kennedy into the team, and you've got the famous Trafford and Kennedy combination. And what a season they had! I don't know, 45, 50 goals between them in the football league. So once again, that little bit of bad luck maybe transformed us into the double-winning team. So I thought that might be an interesting point to make. Yeah.
I think you're right. I felt that when you've played alongside people like, it's great when you come through the whole system, the youth team, the third team, the reserves, and you gel with people, you get to know them and the strengths and weaknesses of people. And when you see somebody like Ray Kennedy, and Ray, he was never ever out of his depth in any shape or form against any club team, even playing for England. He was unbelievably strong, great control, and could score goals out of nothing. And with the way he developed his relationship and partnership with Raddy was fantastic. It really was incredible. And they just gel so well. That's the beauty of it. You get somebody like then Charlie coming back into fitness, and you look at some of the goals that then he was starting to score in the latter half of the season. If you remember the goals he got against Manchester City in the Cup, Main Road, so you do have to have a bit of luck. You have to, unfortunately, rely on maybe somebody. If they you don't rely on it, but if they get injured and you get an opportunity to step in, you've got to take advantage. And Big Ray certainly did that. He was superb, it really was.
Could I just say, Sammy, it was, despite the fact that he was doing brilliantly and scoring regularly, he always believed once Charlie was fit, he'd be straight out the team again. Ray, I used to speak to him in the players' lounge afterwards, and he said, as soon as Charlie's fit, I'll be out the team again. And of course, it was a logical thing to maybe think. But then, of course, the other bit of luck is Charlie dropping into a midfield role, which he played brilliantly the second part of the season when he recovered. So, it's like there's different things, aren't there, that go on in the course of a season that maybe transform it for the better or for the worse, And in our case, everything for the better fell into place perfectly. And poor John Samuels lost out. He lost his place.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, John was a great player. But I think, in the respect of John, I think at that stage, maybe he'd heard a couple of whispers that they were going to try and sign somebody else, which, mentioned Bobby Hope. And also as well, they did eventually sign Bally a year later. Or no, a few months later, sorry, that was after we'd won the double. So I think then that he had maybe a couple of whispers that Ipswich were interested in him and Leicester City. And then, of course, he went to Leicester. And, you get to a certain age, and if you're not going to get regular first-team football, then, obviously he's getting the chance to play in the first division and getting regular football. And it suited him right down to the ground, and he had a great career at Leicester. So you feel sorry for people like that because he was Arsenal through and through, and still is. But you just keep your fingers crossed that somebody else will step up into his place. And, we were reliant a bit on Eddie Kelly. And then Eddie, things got a bit maybe too much for Eddie. He got married and, young kids and everything else. So it was a big ask, for him to try and maintain his his greatness over the previous first cup year and the double year. But I was just saddened that Eddie didn't really stamp his authority on the club for the next 10 years. So it's your luck. You're either ready to play and ready to take part in the team for a long time, not just 1 week. You want to be there for months and months and months, because that's what you train for. And then when you get an opportunity to play for a club like Arsenal, and if you don't take it, you will regret that for the rest of your life, let me tell you. And some of those guys probably wished they'd taken a different turning rather than some of the things that happened to them. But anyway.
Interesting.
Oh, you're right, Sammy. Eddie should have had a much better career at Arsenal. He was a terrific player. He lacked a bit of pace, but he had everything else to his game. And of course, they made him captain, I think, in about 1976. So he was still very highly thought of. But he couldn't really. He lacked a bit of fitness, didn't he? Really, as well, a bit of pace and a bit of fitness, Sammy, to have the career that he should have had. Really.
Yeah, well, I think as I said, he got married he was quite young, and a big responsibility, because I think he had 3 children within 3 years, literally, and it was too much to cope with. And I think sometimes when Alan Ball arrived, then things that were a wee bit unsettling at times with the way things were manipulated, and I think Eddie felt a bit as if, although he was the captain, Bally was more or less like sort of dictating and taking charge, and it didn't sort of really gel too well. And I think in the end, Eddie more or less just stepped down from it. He said he couldn't do it, which was a shame. But and then Bally took over, and that was it for another little while.
Yeah, Bally was a strong character, wasn't he, Sam? To put it mildly.
Well, there's lots of politics go on, Martin, as you well know.
Indeed. Yeah.
There's a couple more questions in the chat from Neil again, saying I'll do it 2 in 1 hit. First off, during the double winning season, who was the dressing room clown and who was the most serious player out of the entire team? And did you ever believe George Graham would go on to be the manager he was, especially when he joined Arsenal as a manager later on down in his career?
Well, regarding George, excuse me, George was he was a good player and a great header of the ball. And I always remember, because afterwards when he became manager, and he was very dictatorial about how the players should behave and dress properly and prepare for games. We used to do these cross countries at Coney, London Coney, and we'd run it, set off, and we'd run up, and it was a continuous climb through ploughed fields and everything else. And about halfway up, there was a hedgerow that went along the ploughed fields. And what happened, we would all be charging up, and George would get the other side of the hedgerow and hide there. So gradually, after about another 15, 20 minutes, we'd be winding our way up, and you go up to the top of these hills, and then out over a gate, onto a road, country road, up the top of the country road, turn right over another gate, down through other ploughed fields and everything else. Then we'd be running down through the ploughed fields, coming just past the hedge again. And the next thing, after about maybe, he wouldn't be one of the first, the quicker runners, or the one with most stamina. He would be hiding there and waiting for about maybe 6, 7, or 8 people to go through. Then he would jump in and come going through and giving all the motions and saying really as if he had really belting up through the fields and everything else without a care in the world, and really giving it as much as he could. And Bertie Mead was saying, "Well done, George, well done." He hadn't run. He run about a quarter of the whole thing. And that's it. He's the guy that got in all the discipline. Oh, it was so funny. We all knew. And well, I mean, it was hilarious, really. It was just how Bertie didn't, like an example was in that pre-season leading up to double. We were in Sweden, and we had 3 guys: Don Howe, Bertie Mee, and George Wright, they were to keep an eye on us doing this cross country through the woods, and we had to follow the arrows, and there were ditches and everything. And Charlie was coming through, and we were sort of laboring through the woods and that, trying to follow one another. And Bertie Mee he was shouting, come on to people, and he backed off and didn't realize there was a ditch behind him, and he fell into this ditch. And he was so small, he couldn't get. He was reaching up, and he saw Charlie. He went, Charlie, and Charlie, and Charlie. He gave him an expletive, something off, and just carried on running. And Bertie was stood and trying to climb out of the ditch. It was hilarious. But anyway, so I think a lot of people knew about it.
Can I just give a shout before I don't know how long there is to go, but, reflecting on that team again, about 2 or 3 other players with a couple of observations. I'll mention Bob McNabb first, because he was a fantastic fullback, as Sammy well knows. He kept him out of the team that season. Bob was a very strong player indeed, a very good tactician, but he was a right-footed left back, and he did have a problem crossing the ball when he broke down the left with a little trio with George Armstrong and George Graham. But a wonderful defender, and Sammy, I'm sure, will agree that along with Frank, they really organised that defence. So I'm mentioning him. I'm going to mention George Armstrong because, of course, Arsenal broke their record transfer fee of £100,000 to replace Geordie with Peter Marinelli. And he certainly rose to the challenge, Geordie, because what a season he had. Fantastic. And lastly, we haven't mentioned the most inspirational person in football that I've ever met, and that's our skipper, Frank McClintock. Yeah. And, Tony Adams, arguably, of course, is the greatest captain of all time. It's about opinions. And Tony won far more things than Frank. And he was a wonderful player. But I personally, and I still meet up with Frank, he hasn't changed a bit. He's still got that love and passion for football. And I think he's the greatest captain that Arsenal have had. And it's not because I know him personally. I really believe that. But of course, Tony Adams has got a shout as well there. Thought I'd mention those few players. And Peter Simpson, wonderful. What a talent he was. He gets recognised, Peter Simpson.
I mean, it's funny because was somebody else, was there? Were you going to mention somebody else? No? Well, you're talking about Frank and Peter Simpson. It's amazing to think of those guys. They weren't the tallest centre backs. And if you can remember Wyn Davis, Ron Davis, do you remember those guys? Wyn Davis used to play for
Yeah.
He was a giant, great in the air. Ron Davis, fantastic in the air. But they still competed with people, and they could judge when the crosses, corner kicks. The setup was to block Ron Davis's run. So somebody, either Peter Simpson or Frank, would be quite close to him, but somebody would be about a yard in front of Ron Davis so that he couldn't get a big enough run to leap up. And the way they did it, we didn't hold shirts or tug shirts or anything like that, but it was really brilliant the way they did it. And Nabbers was funny as well, Bob McNabb. You know yourself, he could talk a great game as well, as you well know. By the time you finished talking to him after a night out, you had cauliflower ears and you had to go and soak them in a sink for about 2 weeks. And he was just unbelievable. But, he worked defensively and everything, and he could talk without a shadow of doubt. Yeah, of course, he was right-footed left back, but Emlyn Hughes was like that, so, and I suppose maybe when he was running with the ball, it was difficult for him to try and hit a ball on the run with his left foot. But, he covered everything and did really well. And with Geordie Armstrong, he was brilliant. And he did get the hump because they signed Peter Marinelli. And obviously they thought, or Geordie thought, well, he's bought Peter to replace me, and I'm not going to have it. I'm going to really compete with him. And that was what Geordie was like. He was great. And, okay, it's a great thing to do, maybe a bit of a trick to manipulate somebody to perform. And if it means signing another player, and Peter Marinelli was a really talented kid. Really was a lovely guy, but he just didn't have the understanding of how the game was played. You know, he just thought he was playing up in Scotland and it was a bit free and easy. And, you know, but he had tremendous talent. And if I say to you, Peter Marinello's first game was against Manchester United at Old Trafford. And in the team talk, and that was one of the games I played in. Now, this wasn't a double year, but Peter, he said that Don Howe said to Peter, he said, Peter, he said, you're playing against Tony Dunn. He's one of the fastest fullbacks. Don't take him on. Don't push it wide. You know, don't go, you know, you'll never get past him. First couple of minutes, Peter gets the ball and he runs at him, pushes it past him, cuts in and scores a fantastic goal. I wish he'd only done it against Ajax a couple of years later, whenever it was, when we lost at Highbury. But, you know, but he was amazingly talented, but unfortunately just couldn't adapt, couldn't put his mind to really focus and be determined about staying in the team. He's a bit like David Cassidy. Do you remember David Cassidy used to be one of the pop stars and he had spots in his face? Peter was like that. And then he had the cheek to do a milk advert to give you clean, healthy skin. Yeah. But he was a lovely guy, you know, and, you know, but it's all part and parcel of the whole squad, you know, all different backgrounds, all from different parts of the UK, you know, Glasgow, you know, rough areas, and, you know, people northeast like Ray Kennedy and Ratty from Yorkshire, you know, and Ratty still talks like that as well. You know, you wish he'd had elocution lessons, you know, but, you know, but tell him that in the phone. I wouldn't tell it to his face. You know. But Frank, I must say to you, just going back, he was a tremendous captain, and he worked wonders for the guys and encouraged everybody. And when it came to nitty gritty, he was there. Make no mistake. So all in all, it was, you know, they were a squad of players that really zoomed in for that couple of years. And, you know, it's a shame that after that, you know, people tend to maybe be thought of as, oh, it's time for them to move out of the club and sign somebody else. But, you know, they made a mistake with Frank letting him go too early. But I'm not the manager.
Also,
So sorry, was there somebody?
No, sorry. Got another comment in the chat. We've got another comment in the chat from someone called Terry, who says it's not a question, it's a comment, basically saying, Sammy, I remember when you kicking Man United's Remy Moses into row Z, and after the game you signed his programme and you kissed him on the head, and from that day onwards you're his hero.
Oh, I thought you meant to kiss Remy Moses on the head. That's very kind of him, yeah. But you see, I always said to people to ingratiate themselves. People, for example, Charlie used to ingratiate himself with the crowd at Highbury because he was a local boy. And I used to say to you know, the players and everything, you know, talk to the fans. You know, when the ball used to go out of play, go off the track down into the wells, and you had to bend down and, you know, and you'd see people in the crowd were looking. And I used to say hello to them. It's a lovely day, isn't it? You know, we're doing okay, aren't we? You're chatting to them, and they would look at you and say, what are you doing? Like, why are you talking to me? And it was just like, well, you pay money to come and watch us and be entertained. And if you can talk to people and, you know, and they remember go back and they say to their dad at home or mother or whatever, he was chatting away to me and the game was going on. So there's things like that. I used to love doing that, you know, and I really think that maybe it didn't sort of gel with too many people, but I always thought, you know, that was part and parcel of the whole setup, is to make sure that you give the fans full value, not only with the game, but being a bit of a guy that can talk to people and thank them very much, you know, for coming and supporting, you know. It's only it's very little.
What about that, reflecting back, sorry to interrupt you, 50 years ago, the way the fans like myself and the players would mix freely together in the pub. You remember every Saturday night at the White Hart. I think, did you come along or did you stay locally with Charlie and the guys, or did you come up to the White Hart on a Saturday?
Well, it depended where I was in digs. For the first 8 years or so, I was in digs. You move from one place to another, but I was with the same landlady in her family. You probably know the guy that he used to. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, and so with John and that, and I wouldn't sort of go out socializing with John. It was different, but I would go maybe up to the White Hart, maybe with Ricey or something, or with a couple of the other guys when I was in Islington. We would go down the East End, and I used to have some laughs with people. After a match at Highbury, I came back. We played a match at Chelsea. We beat Chelsea the year after the double year, and I came back, got my car, and went down to pick a mate up in Islington to go down to the East End to this. It was a nice pub. A fellow called Johnny Barton owned it, and his son Warren Barton used to play for Newcastle. But Johnny Barton had this pub, a bit rough. So I went down with my mate about 7 o'clock, hardly anybody there. Just got my first beer, was just having a sip, and the door crashed open. And I thought, oh. And this guy came in, he looked around, he went, and he saw my mate, and he said, oh, he recognized my mate, and he started chatting away, and he kept looking at me, and I was just sipping my beer. And he said to my mate, are you playing Sunday football tomorrow? Are you playing this? And my mate said, yeah. He said, are you playing? He said, yeah. I said, and then eventually this guy, he turned around and he said, I've seen you somewhere before. He said, have you ever played over the marshes? Hackney Marshes, it's like 150 pitches. I was devastated. And my mate nearly fell on the floor laughing. He said he just played Chelsea this afternoon for Armstrong. And he was devastated as well because he was so embarrassed. But I thought it was lovely that he thought I played at Hackney Marshes, or that's where he thought I probably should have played. But pretty funny.
We've got another question in the chat from Tracy. She says, hi lads, after a brilliant season, did any of you think the team was capable of winning more going after that season, basically?
Well, the team was broken up too early. That's why. It's one of them. Though we did come second in the league and got to the cup final, I think, the next season.
We came second. We came up in the 72-73 season. We came runners up there. We lost in the semi-final to Sunderland in 73. So I mean, that's where it started. The cracks started to appear because they signed Jeff Buckley to replace Frank, and then Jeff got a bad injury. It's very difficult because they were looking on only having small budgets for the managers to work on and to buy players to replace. And you couldn't buy somebody unless you sold somebody. Whereas, some of the teams today, Man City or whatever, Chelsea, they can sign whoever they like and not worry about having to sell somebody else to replace them, to get the money back in. So Bertie Mee was under a lot of pressure, but in the end, he couldn't get back the sort of same tempo as the squad of 71. He just couldn't do it. It's a shame.
Yeah, I think the bubble team should have achieved a great deal more, Sammy. And I think you've got to look at Bertie for that, as everybody said, sold players much too quickly, and losing Frank, and I think they sold, so it was either one or the other. But losing Frank went on and had a great career at QPR. What is it, 3 or 4 years? I think he played till he was 38. He could have done a great job for Arsenal over those years. And but I suppose it's difficult for the managers when they fall out of the player.
Yeah, but my point. Sorry, Martin. My point really was the main man that we lost was Don Howe.
Yeah.
If we'd have kept Don, if he'd have stayed there, we'd have been fine. And when you look back.
Do you think Bertie Mee tried hard enough to keep Don Howe there? What's your feelings on that?
Well, he realized Don was a very popular person, and that, for somebody like Don, maybe Bertie thought Don was a threat to him, but Don wasn't a threat in the least. He wasn't, as I said, he wasn't a manager, and unfortunately that was proven. At West Bromwich, and also he came back to Arsenal as well, and took over, I think, from Terry Neal. But it really was a shame. I wished he had stayed, and just to see what the impact would have been. I think it would have been fantastic. Because his input on who he would like what players to bring through and who to let go and who to sign, it would have been immense. Really would.
Oh well, it's all history now. What about today's team, guys? Before, how do we feel about Thursday?
Well, we just have to keep everything crossed, Martin. It's just you can never back against Arsenal. You just don't know. No matter what period, whether it's the 1980s, the 90s, or whatever. Or even now, you just don't back against them. And you just, fingers crossed, trust that the whole bunch of them realize the opportunity they've got to sort of stamp their name and a bit of history again. And, and actually try and sort of, thank the fans for what they have done for this pandemic over the last year or so, with nobody being there. We all need, as supporters, we need something from the guys on the pitch to put us and get us through, because they will make a great bash in terms of winning that and getting through the final. And perhaps if they do get the final and win it, I mean, after the ups and downs of this season, to win something like that would be just immense, really would. And I think the players should realise that, and if that's not drummed into them for this game on Thursday, well, I don't know what they need to know about it.
I'm sure
Everything should be cared for them.
I'm feeling very confident, maybe a bit more confident than David Luiz a bit. Fit. I think he's a loss, but I really think we're going to go through, and I think we're going to win it, guys.
Really? That'd be great.
Yeah.
That'd be fantastic. Let's be honest, the season we've had this season, that would be absolutely fantastic. And they're going to be our first European trophy since Copenhagen in '94 as well.
Which was actually on this day, May the 4th, by the way.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Even the great Arsene Wenger couldn't win a European trophy, which is a bit of a stain on his career, unfortunately.
He came close a couple of times, didn't he? He came close a couple of times.
I think you misunderstand Mr. Wenger in the sense that what he brought to the club. And I can remember exactly talking to you at Highbury, and you were saying, "This is a different gravy. This guy's football is different gravy." I think those were your exact. And you said to me, "The football that we play," and let me tell you, the game we played that night was against Auxerre, and we lost. So I thought, we better go and round you up and put you up about on the flagpole. Because we were so adamant about, it was amazing what he did and the transformation of the type of players. For those, the Invincibles and everything else, you won't see anything better than that. But maybe you would. The 71 team would have given him a good bash. Don't worry.
There's also a nice parallel that the final was on the 26th of May. And I think we all know what happened on the 26th of May.
I was 6 days old that year.
I'm allergic to these sorts of superstitions, but why not? Why not?
Yeah. What was it? What was the 26th of May then? What was that? Did I miss out on that?
I heard it might be. It's certainly not your birthday, Sam. That's for sure.
No,
Yeah, it was a bit of a night, but that's for another occasion.
Oh, was it? Oh, excuse me. Forgive me.
Yeah.
For anyone that hasn't noticed as well, Melvin's got a bit of a memorabilia with him tonight in the background. Do you want to tell people about this?
Well, Sammy should know. He did the auction. Do you remember that, Sam?
What?
If anybody's interested, Manchester City have just taken the lead, and they're leading 3-1 against PSG.
No, there you go.
Really
I got this. I went to. There was I think 40 years since the double. 10 years ago, obviously, Arsenal had a do on. I was there with Stan, my friend Stan, and this come up for auction. This ball. I thought, well, it's going to go for so much money. But as the bidding started, it wasn't very high, so I thought I'd get involved. I got to a level, and I said to my friend Stan, well, that's my lot done. Go halves. He goes, all right then. And we got it. And after we got the ball, Martin said to me, he said, our table was going to bid for that, but once I knew you were going through, we'll let you have it. Is that right, Martin? Do you remember that?
Well, yeah, I think it's worth a lot more than you paid, Melvin. Let's put it that way. Good investment.
It's lovely to have. I think I can see Charlie's, foot mark where he scored. But being at game as well, seeing the ball come towards me behind the goal before he made it 2-1, Charlie. It's fantastic. I never thought that one day I had a 50% share in that ball going in the net. It was wonderful. Wonderful. And what a day that was as well. The cup for him. Absolutely fantastic. One weird game.
Can you hear us, Sam?
Sammy, all right?
Can you hear me, Sam?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I was just moving a couple of files.
There was a question that I asked right at the beginning. Was where were you when the game took place at White Hart Lane? Were you part of the team? I know you weren't on the bench, but
no, I was up in the stand. I was up in the. Right. So they scored the goal. Ray scored a goal to my right. So I was in the stand up, looking to the right. So I don't know what stand that was, but.
That's the East stand at was it the East stand or was that the East stand at Tottenham Worcester Avenue? Yeah, I was on the shelf that night when there was no segregation. Yeah. Hard to believe that there was no segregation between the fans on that occasion. Incredible.
Yeah, they didn't need to be. It was all Arsenal fans. Mark.
It was, yeah, it was phenomenal. Yeah.
No, they won't forget that. And if I tell you before I go, ironically enough, this is the 50th anniversary, and Tottenham. Maybe you know, and maybe you don't know, but my brother-in-law was the captain of Tottenham when they won the double in '61.
Of course, yeah, I forgot that.
Yeah.
Did you know that? Danny Blanchford. He was my brother-in-law.
Wow. Yeah. Amazing.
We've got another
Not
question.
many people know that, Sam.
Yeah, we've got another question.
He was your manager first, Sammy, when you played for Northern Ireland, wasn't he?
Well, I told you that when he became manager of Northern Ireland, and I was playing, and I went up to him and I said to him, "Look, Danny," I said, "there's only a couple of people of the players know that there's a family connection. There's Pat Rice and Pat Jennings." And I said, just pick the team on merit. And he said, "Don't worry." He says, "Leave that to me." Next game, he dropped me. He hasn't even been before he dropped me. So I thought, so good. Honestly, yeah. So that was Dan trying to make his point over me. But anyway, well, is everything okay? Is it time to wind up, or what happens here?
We've got about another 10 minutes. We'll start winding up. Yeah, we've got a couple more questions in the chat, and then we'll wind things up. That's okay with you?
Well, yeah, I'll have to put my hot chocolate on the back burner.
I think Sammy's getting hungry.
What?
Getting hungry, Sam. You want your dinner?
Is there another question? What was that? Another question?
No. The question is, there's two questions. The first one is, do you think today's players realise the privilege of playing for the Arsenal? And if you could, what what would you tell the team before the game on Thursday?
Well, I think some of them take the club for granted. That it's just another football club, and they just don't understand the history of the club and what it means to people in the borough of Islington and Woolwich and so forth. And it's a different mindset for a lot of these foreign guys. And to them, it's a 2-year contract, 3-year contract. They'll move on. They're not worried about long service or anything like that. And it is very difficult to get over to them that there's many thousands of Arsenal supporters are desperate for success on Thursday night, and they're reliant on you. They really are reliant on you. And if you cannot get yourself going and up for this game, you might as well pack the game in, because in the end, you're destroying a lot of people's hopes and wishes by not giving a good. It's frustrating. What I'm trying to say is that some of the guys, they tend to just, I could have got that ball, I could have got that tackle, but they pull out and don't follow through and tackle properly and get the ball and carry on. But they seem to just say, somebody else will get that. They need to have the whole squad fighting for every ball and everything. And whether that's instilled into them before they go onto the pitch or not, I don't know. I don't know who sort of winds the players up, or who within the team winds the players up. Is there anybody there that I can't really see anybody that really stirs the players up within the team,
There's no big captain there. There's 2 or 3 leaders, probably just Louise and Zaka, but there's no real inspirational captain. And they don't grow on trees. They don't grow on trees. I think these days, managers don't give so much importance to the captaincy like back in the day with us. And I think they expect the players to just do it themselves. And unfortunately, very often they don't.
No, well, this is what I'm saying. For a number of years, it was okay when you had people like Vieira. He understood. Bergkamp understood. Henry understood about Arsenal. But these other people, recently, some of them they don't seem to have the same desire. And, I just find it incomprehensible that they should come and get great contracts and get to one of the best clubs in the world and not show the responsibility of trying to achieve something good for their own benefit and for the benefit of the fans at home. It defeats me. It really does. It's very upsetting. I just can't take it. I really can't. And I just trust that they show a bit of clout on Thursday. I really do.
But the thing is now, going forward, the best hope for Arsenal is once again the few homegrown players that are in the team are making a huge impact. And I think if we can, keep developing players like that, things will be bright for Arsenal. But also, it's bad signings. It's not just about signing players with ability. I think it's up to the managers, whoever makes the signings these days, to make a judge of character, whether they're going to be, the right type and be committed to the club. And there's been so many failings for years now on the players brought into Arsenal. I think that's where the problem is. But the kids are fine, and they're our future.
It's funny, but I think you mentioned about 10 of the double squad were homegrown, came through the youth system. And I have, we were all given this Arsenal book by the chairman of the club, celebrating the double. And in it, there was an article, or just a little snippet, about the 10 players. And it just shows you, they said they valued the 10 players somewhere in the region of £900,000. It'd be so much money for £900,000. For the 10 players, and that sounded really like bucket loads of money at the time. But when you think players are fast approaching, some of them, that amount of money per week, it is a difference. But what's even worse, if some of those guys are earning big money and they don't turn in a performance, you have to say to yourself, why do you bother? You know, but anyway, that's for the manager to sort of. Oh.
I've got another one last question based on this events this week, basically from Terry saying, "What is for everyone? What do you guys think of Henry's comments on Daniel X imminent making of a bid to Arsenal, and what he wants to bring back to Arsenal, what he believes Arsenal have lost throughout the years, understand Kroenke, etc."
Well, I have nothing to say about that. That's political, so I have nothing to say about that.
Yes, no problem. Melvin, you put your hand up there.
Yeah, I just think that it's irrelevant what he wants to bring to the club. He hasn't got no power at all. Unless the guy wants to sell and does sell, we can make all the promises in the world. It's irrelevant.
I'm just asking the question.
He's playing a game of football by himself, the guy. There's no one to take him on because once Kroenke decides to sell, number one, it's going to be done privately in this deal, if there is going to be a deal. You're not going to be. So they're always. I hope it's not. I hope this guy's not like this. It looks like it's all for show. So it doesn't matter who gets on his side. It's whether Kroenke decides to sell or not. That's the big question.
Yeah, also Neil in the chat as well, saying at least we have the likes of Emil Smith-Rowe and Saka that appreciate the chance they've been given and what it means to don that cannon on the chest every week. It is. I think Sammy's said it before, but I've said it throughout the whole season that the 19 and 20-year-old are running a couple of our best players. Period. And then that's when you look at the players that are the experienced players, it's like, how are these young kids carrying you? You should be helping them, and hence why we're getting the injuries of Smith-Rowe and all that as well. But
I think that applied to in the double year as well, because there was a nucleus of young guys coming through, and they sort of dovetail well in with the experienced ones, and there was a good spread of age there. You know, you had a few of the sort of like Ray Kennedy, Eddie, Charlie, Pat Rice, myself, 5 or 6 of us there were sort of 20, 21, whatever, along with people like Frank, who was 30, 31, and, you know, and George Graham, Brady's a bit older, but not that much older. But, you know, there was a good spread. And, you know, I think sometimes you get young, effervescent fellas like Charlie and Ray, you know, dovetailing so well that it inspires some of the other players, the more senior players. It says, well, look at what they're doing. I'm going to try and follow that, you know, and that's what they did.
I think we're going to wrap things up there because obviously we're going for over an hour and nearly 20 minutes now. We're going to give obviously Melvin, Richard, and the guys the chance to tell people where they can find them and all that, and plug the channels. And also, we may be doing a part 3 tomorrow on Richard's channel, but we're still sorting all the things on that out. But we'll start with you, Melvin. Where do you want to be found, basically, on social media?
You can find me on Melvin Anyway, Arsenal Marks on Twitter, but on this channel, on Richard's channel, over and over again, Arsenal, and on Andrew's channel, from Dial Square to Where. That's what I found. Thanks again for having me on.
Absolutely no problem. And also, a massive thank you to Melvin, because this is all Melvin. Everything that's happening this week is all down to Melvin. It was his idea to come to us and involve us in this.
Well done, Mel.
Thank you, Melvin.
Thank you. Thank you, Sammy.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you. Nice to see you guys.
Sammy, send best wishes to Helen.
Sorry?
Send my best wishes to Helen.
I will, yeah. She's just getting her Arsenal kit on for me.
And
lucky we can't see Sam.
Again,
I'm still only a substitute as well.
And yeah, but
Anyway,
actually,
Well,
Massive thank you to yourself,
thank
Sammy,
you
for
very
coming
much
on
for
and giving
asking
us the
me.
time.
Cheers, Sam.
Okay.
Great to have you on.
All the best.
Great to have you on.
Thank you, guys.
Keep well.
Yeah.
See you later.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sammy.
Cheers.
Be well.
Nice one. Thank
All the
you.
best, Sammy.
Thank you, everyone.
All the best. And Richard, what about, where can people find you? And obviously, everything what coming up on your channel on social media?
Yeah, the channel's called Over and Over and Over Again. Obviously, last night we did a show on the 71 season. We had Tom Watt on. In fact, Martin was meant to come on as well, but he couldn't get connected, unfortunately, last night. So it was good that he was managed to get on tonight, which was good. It's been fantastic for me listening to Sammy's stories there from the sort of 71 team. Just absolutely fantastic. You know, stuff that, I mean, I've followed the history of Arsenal, but when you get insight like that from a player who was in the squad, it's just fantastic to hear that. You know, hear those stories. It's brilliant. I've just really, really enjoyed it. So yeah, massive thanks to Sammy for taking part, coming on, and obviously, like Ryan said, to Melvin as well for kind of pulling it all together. It's been a lot of work gone on behind the scenes to get all these shows off the ground, and we're going to try and get one on tomorrow if we can. There's a couple of other people that maybe want to get involved, so hopefully we can do that tomorrow. And then obviously the rest of the week we're going to be looking at Thursday, aren't we? Big game,
big game
for everybody. Really important game and exciting, but probably nervous as well. But you know, having spent a lot of time this week looking back on the 71 season, you know, I think, you know, whatever happens on Thursday night, it's not going to be anything like that, is it? Any as dramatic as the way that season finished, you know, with the final league game and the FA Cup final. So, you know, it's obviously it's a big game for what it is now. But I think in the overall scheme of things, when you look at what happened 50 years ago, it kind of gives you a bit of perspective, doesn't it? You know, but obviously I hope we win on Thursday. I'm not as confident as Martin, unfortunately. I think it's going to be really, really tough, and we're not playing particularly well at home. And I think that might come back to haunt us perhaps on Thursday. We'll see. Hopefully we can do it. We only need to win
We're going to do it. I'm really confident. Really confident.
No, well, I hope you're right. I really, really hope you're right. And I'll, you know, I really
mind you. Let's see what team he picks. He's got a dilemma this week, Arteta. So many different options.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the back four, it's four. There's no certain starter. You can't go right back, two central defenders, a left wing back. You can't say who's going to start. We don't know whether it'll be Xhaka or Saka, Bellerin or Chambers, which two centre halves. We haven't got a clue. What a difficult job.
Martin, I've got a question for you. Martin, got a question for you. This season, have you ever picked the same team as Arteta's picked?
No, probably not. But things are so different now because of the squad and the rotation, and particularly this season, where you've had to play games every 3 days. All the managers, you know, it's incredibly difficult for them. Yeah. So, you know, I understand that, but I haven't. And but I'm actually a big fan of Arteta, and I hope he's given the opportunity. It's going to be difficult if things go badly Thursday. He's going to come under extreme pressure, but I actually think he's got a great deal to offer, and I think he deserves another couple of transfer windows. It still is nowhere near the team. It's not his team, far from it. And don't worry, the failings of the players that we know about, don't ever think Arteta's not aware of them and he knows what to replace. So coming in at Arsenal has been an incredibly difficult job for Emery and for him. You know, love Wenger, what he did, but didn't love the last 5 or 10 years. I mean, you know, Wenger should have been moved on years before.
I mean, I like the sentiment, Martin. I do. I like your sentiment with Arteta, but honestly, what has he done this season to deserve? If we don't win the Europa League, we don't get through to the final. What has he done for you to deserve another transfer window, another season? What's he actually done to deserve that? When you look at the results this season. Oh, has he gone?
Stuck.
It's frozen on my screen.
Yeah.
Be back in 1 minute, John. 1 minute.
Yeah, no worries, Melvin. Sorry.
Oh, that's a shame. I was looking forward to that answer.
Well, hopefully he'll come back if he's come out.
No, I do as well, yeah, because I'm quite interested in everybody that's 100% backing Arteta and wants to give him more time, which, you know, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I just like to know why people think that, what they feel he's done to deserve that, because I don't feel at this moment he's done enough to warrant that. And, you know, I'm not saying it's not been an easy season, because we know it hasn't, but I don't know. It just kind of worries me that he hasn't shown enough that he can, you know, if we've got a lot of money to spend this summer, and we might well have, because I think the owners, if the same owners are still there, I think they are going to want to prove a point and spend a bit of money. And I don't want that money spent badly. I want it spent in the right way. And as Arteta, is he going to spend it in the right way? That's what concerns me, looking at what's happened so far. The players that he's brought in or been a part of bringing in haven't exactly filled us with confidence. And I don't know, I'm concerned about, I would be, if we don't win the Europa League this season, we're not in Europe next season, I will be concerned about next season if we've still got Arteta in charge, personally. But I understand that it hasn't been easy, and he's a great coach. I fully understand he's a great coach. Is he a great manager? Can he motivate these players? Can he organise them properly? I'm not sure if he can. He hasn't proved it enough for me yet. And I don't know. I thought last Thursday, sorry, when that first half performance, I didn't see how there was any way back for Arteta then, actually. But to be fair, we kind of turned it around in the second half a little bit, and we've got a chance on Thursday now, haven't we? You know, we can do it. You know, they're not a great side, Villarreal. They're not a great side at all. We made them look good for 45 minutes last week. Well, they're not a great side, are they?
So I think what goes in our favour is that the opposing manager we know too well, and he showed his. And again, Unai Emery last week showed what he used to do at Arsenal. Instead of going for the kill in certain games when he had to tip the opposition on the ropes, he took off a striker last week. He put a Coquelin on.
Yeah, but that was an injury. I mean, no, that was sort of towards the end of the game. I mean, I thought it was. At half time there was an injury. He had an injury. That player got injured, and you brought on a defensive player. But when you're 2-0 up at half time, you don't need to get more goals, do you, in a European game? You just need to keep a clean sheet. And to be fair, that penalty that we had was ridiculous. I mean, I would be devastated if that had been given against us.
You watch what happened on Thursday now. That'll happen.
Yeah, no, I can guarantee what happened on Thursday. They're going to get a dodgy penalty probably. But anyway, we'll see. Hopefully they won't. But you know what I mean? So I thought Emery in terms of, yes, he didn't manage the second half particularly well. But I think he did what most of us would have wanted Arteta to do in the same situation. Is you're 2-0 up. You know, I can remember there was a game once. I think it actually was it one that Sammy mentioned earlier when we played in the Champions League, and we played at home and we lost. We were 2-0 down. We got a goal back to 2-1. And what Arsenal did, maybe Wenger's philosophy was, let's try and get an equaliser, make it 2-2 about the last minute or whatever when we scored. And what we did was gave the ball away and conceded a third goal, and that actually knocked us out. And you know what I thought Emery was doing last week was he tried to say, right, okay, it's 2-0. If we win this game 2-0, that's a good result to take away from home. And I think if it had been the other way round, we'd have been delighted with a 2-0 home win. And in the second half, unfortunately, we got a very, very soft penalty, and it's changed it all.
You see, if we would have lost 2-0 and gotten back to the Emirates, had they scored one goal, we would have had to get 4. They're in a very strong position in 2-0.
Exactly. And don't forget, though, they nearly scored a third. It was a good save from Leno, actually. It would have been 3-0 just before we had the penalty. So, you know, they wasn't far off actually getting an unassailable lead the other night from the way that they set the game out. They're not a great team, but they did a job on us, certainly for 45 minutes last week. And we did get lucky. We got lucky to get the penalty. We're lucky to still be in it. But sometimes in the cup, that's what you need. And if we can turn that around on Thursday, which we're certainly capable of doing it, if we play to the maximum that we can get through. But my worry is we just haven't done it at home. We haven't won at home for 5 games. Are we suddenly going to turn in a performance at home when we really need it? Well, let's hope we can, but I'm not confident that we will. But
has Martin gone? I know he froze.
He froze. I think his signal must have gone. It was a shame because I was quite looking forward to his answer.
To him, wasn't it? Right, to Martin.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant.
That's why
him and Sammy just fantastic. Two great guests.
Sammy is unbelievable.
Yeah, fantastic. That's why I sat back most of the time and let him talk.
I was just loving listening to Sammy's stories. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's people listening back won't obviously see, but when Sammy and Martin are talking and you guys are talking, lived through that 71 season and the season before, and like Richard said, it's so nice. It's so good to hear that. But it actually put a smile on my face and actually cheer. I think the thing going on, that's uplifting and.
Yeah, it's been fantastic.
We've got to do something tomorrow, boys, haven't we? We've got to do something tomorrow. Keep this going, haven't we?
We need to try, we need to try and get something organised for tomorrow. That would be fantastic because I think there's it would be good to go into Thursday night on the back of all this real high that we've had, and hopefully, I say it's not going to rub off on the players particularly, but it will certainly rub off on us, and it makes me feel a little more excited about Arsenal in general because there hasn't been lots to be excited about recently, if we're totally honest. And it's nice to have something like this, an anniversary such as this of such a great achievement for the club. And to be doing what we've done, you know, people that were there, an ex-player, I mean, that's just amazing. That to get Sammy on, fantastic. You know, it's a shame, you know, tomorrow night the original show can't go ahead as planned, but which is a real shame. But yeah, it's been fantastic. This I really, really enjoyed it, and it's just been great listening to the story.
Chat tomorrow. Quick chat tomorrow morning. I'll have to make a couple of phone calls tomorrow morning just to see what's about. There might, I doubt it. There might be something about. I'll just keep my fingers crossed, right?
Let's hope so, because it would be good to get something else on the go, wouldn't it? Just to finish off the week, you know, before we get into Thursday. Because obviously, I think once Thursday comes around, I think all the focus has got to be on that, hasn't it? And depending on the result, how we feel on Friday. And I know Saturday's the anniversary actually of the FA Cup final in '71, and it would be nice to maybe do something on Saturday for that, maybe as well, possibly.
We're live now, aren't we?
We're still live. Yeah.
We can maybe look at trying to do something maybe for Saturday for, you know, just focusing on the FA Cup final itself of '71, because that is the 50th. Obviously, you were there, Melvin, at the game. Yeah. Obviously, you know, a few other people that were there. Don't know if we could maybe try to organise that maybe for Saturday for that.
Yeah, if Wednesday's too short notice, you never know. Try and get someone on.
Saturday might work better anyway, because, you know, especially if the result on Thursday hasn't gone well, it can give us something to be excited about.
Yeah. All right. Let's work on that, shall we?
Let's try and do something for Saturday for the FA Cup final. Just do literally a show on the Cup final rather than the league season, or maybe the FA Cup run and the FA Cup final. Do something like that. That'd be really good for the 50th anniversary. And I'll put a little intro together for that as well.
Yeah, cool.
That's great. Well done.
It gives us also, like you said, it gives us a few days to get a few more guests, people to come on the line.
Exactly, yeah. See if we can get a few people on that maybe couldn't make
it. Martin Levy on as well. He's been to a few games, isn't he, Martin Levy?
Yeah, it's every single home game.
Yeah. No, brilliant. I just personally, you know, I could just sit and listen to people.
Yeah, that's what I was doing.
Talking about the old games that they've been at and all that kind of stuff all the time. I just think it's fantastic. You know, I mean, I go back a bit and I remember a lot of games, but when it's stuff before even I remember, I think it's fantastic. I just love that. Yeah. Because, you know, it just, I've read the books about it, you've seen clips of it and you've seen it like that. But to actually hear from the people that were there and their experiences of it is just unbelievable. For me, it's just brilliant. It's just one of the greatest things ever. And I would love to do this.
It's been a good week so far, hasn't it?
Absolutely brilliant. I mean, it's fantastic. These two shows have been the best two shows I've been involved in.
Your two channels with Andrew, your two channels always had good content, truly content, but this is to another level, doesn't it?
Yeah, the last 2 days have been fantastic. I mean, for me personally, it's been brilliant. This is a thing that I love. The history of Arsenal is something I really love, and to get that experience from people like you guys that were there, and I say Sammy as well. I mean, that was Sammy. I was just sitting there thinking, "Wow, this is just incredible." Just listening to Sammy.
Danny Blanchflower's funny, wasn't it? The Danny Blanchflower story.
He had loads of good stories. Yeah, brilliant. And that one about George Graham as well.
George Graham, brilliant. But that's like you, Richard. Because obviously we weren't there, so I enjoy it because it's from people first. In this case, it's not just the fans first hand that were there, but we've able a player, an actual player that was there and in the month still.
Yeah, just brilliant. I mean, I'd like to maybe look even further back in history and try and get some people that maybe saw us win the league in '53 or something like that. I don't know if there's too many around now, but something like that would be fantastic. Stuff that I've read so much about and I've studied a lot over the years, to actually speak to people that experienced it in real life is, for me, it's just incredible to hear that and to listen to those stories. It's absolutely brilliant. And tonight has been
wasn't it wonderful to listen to how he gets Arsenal, Sammy?
Oh yeah,
gets it, doesn't he?
Yeah.
But you see, this is why for me. This is why, for me, it's so important that we get former players like Sammy who understand the club inside the club now with the players that we've got, and make them realise how important it is. I mean, you come away listening to Sammy. I mean, obviously, Arsenal means the world to us anyway. It always has done, and that's, you know, we take that for granted. But when you hear Sammy talk like that from a player's perspective, it makes you think, you know, if the other players were to hear people like that constantly talking about that and how much the club means and how important it is, I'm sure that would get into them. It would, because it got into me listening to Sammy, and I love Arsenal anyway. I don't need it to be reinforced, but yet listening to Sammy, it really hits you, and you think, Jesus Christ, this is how important this really is, and that the players nowadays need to hear this, and they need people from that, maybe people from Sammy's era to be involved. People talking about Thierry Henry and Patrick Vieira, yeah, fantastic, but as well, people from, David O'Leary has been mentioned before, people like that really get Arsenal, really get the old values that the club had and how important it is. Obviously, David Rocastle would have been a perfect type of person, wouldn't he? Because he completely got it as well. But people like that, that's who we need.
So many of them.
So many.
From that
so many of them out there. A lot of them are not involved in the club, are they? Why aren't these people involved in the club? Why?
I know he was involved in the club, but someone who really gets it as well, and so intelligent and great, well, more than a great player, Liam Brady.
Well, he's been involved for years, wasn't it, at the youth level and stuff like that.
To hear him talk about football and talk about the Arsenal, he's amazing. The guy absolutely gets it.
This is what the players lack. The players lack that. Our current squad, apart from one or two, as we know, the rest of them don't have that. They don't have that feeling. They don't have that understanding of what Arsenal means, not just to the fans, but means to, so many people, from former players and people that's been involved in the club. It means so much to so many people. And on Thursday, and it's like Sammy said there, and he's totally right, isn't he? How much that means to everybody that's involved with Arsenal. Not the players, not the staff at the club now, but everybody else, all the fans around the world, the former players and everybody like that. How much that game means to all of us on Thursday. And I don't think that half them players don't understand that. They don't get it. They don't get how much it means to so many people. I don't think they do. It's their job, and fair enough. You can understand that. They're doing their job and they want to win, I'm sure. But to actually understand how important it is to so many people, it changes your whole perspective on it, I think. And I don't know. It's lacking in this team.
Yeah, sort of touch on what you said about having ex-players. I've been looking at it as well. No coincidence. After Pat Rice retired and obviously Liam Brady left, in fact, was it 2007? Maybe a bit longer, maybe a bit later than that. Liam Brady, I can't remember now. When they left the clubs, other players other ex-players have never been allowed back in. Basically, I remember in the early years of the Emirates, Tony Adams and a few other players from the 80s and 90s formed a consortium. They wanted to come on the board and all that, and be part of the club and sort of be that next generation of what Brady and Pat Rice and all that, and they weren't allowed. And they don't even, it scratches their head up. Why? And hopefully, whoever may take over, if it ever happens, they can sort of part of it reach out to these ex-players, the players that are still with us, Pat Rice, David O'Leary, you bring him in properly, Kevin Campbell, Seaman, Dixon, Winterburn, Adams, even Adams, for the ones that are more recent as well as far back as possible, for the players that are still around, bring them back, ingrain them back into the squad, into the club, and have having roles where when kids are coming through or players come signed from abroad or whatever, first thing they basically do is one-on-one with one of them players, and it's going through the history of the club and what it meant for them as a player.
Yeah, exactly. And that's so important. It's so important. And I don't think you can underestimate how important that is. And you can clearly see, as you said there, Ryan, when a lot of these players have left the club, then because we haven't had similar people replacing them, that's lost. That's been lost in the last 10, 15 years, hasn't it? It's slowly got lost in the club. And you can clearly see that, and it's a shame because just listening to Sammy tonight has really brought it home to me even more, actually, how important that is. There'll be like you said, there's loads of people out there that have got that exactly the same feeling towards the club as Sammy has. And these are the people that we need at the club. We need speaking to the players on a regular basis. Don't worry about tactics and don't worry about coaching. Yeah, we have to do that. Of course we do. But we need, I think that the players these days spend too much time on all that stuff, whereas in actual fact they need more. They need to spend more time getting the real understanding of what it means to play for Arsenal and what Arsenal means. And I don't know. To me, that's obviously they're all talented players we've got in the squad. They're international footballers. They're really good players, and individually they're great. But do they really understand how important Arsenal is? I'm not sure if some of them don't, clearly.
No. Whereas
You don't win anything without heart. You've got to have a bit of heart.
No, and I guarantee you this, right? Say we win the Europa League this year, right? Let's assume that we do. In 50 years' time, when not necessarily, I don't know if I'll be around to celebrate that, probably not, but the people that are maybe celebrating the 50th anniversary of winning the Europa League, and maybe invite some of these players on, Aubameyang or whoever it might be, come on and speak about it. They won't have that passion that Sammy just come across with, will they? No. They won't have that. Absolutely no chance they won't.
Yeah, that's another reason I enjoyed tonight, because obviously from an ex-player's point of view, not just seeing the story, but you could hear and feel the passion.
Yeah, of course you could.
From him. I love that. I miss that. I mean,
yeah. But all the players used to be like that, didn't they? Back in them. Not even, even more recent than that. Even in the 80s, even. I would say
the 80s plus not the early, not even the 90s, like the 90s team, the Adams and Dixons and all that. It's this century of players that are mercenaries, so we say. They just in it for them. They use us. It's like that Sammy says. They don't appreciate. They think the grass is greener, and it's not always the case, because the players have moved on, and it's been absolutely turmoil for them. And they've wanted to come back.
And it shows more as well. I think on a lesser scale is that we haven't got any players in this team that defend other players on the pitch. Years ago, if someone got a bad tackle from someone in the Arsenal team would go up and win something back. We can get that now. There's no way. I mean, for example, Saka. He's been getting some really horrible stick the last few months, right? He's been targeted, let's face it, right? I've never seen one Arsenal player do the left back or ever go at them like it would have been done or should have been done. They got it. Liverpool got it. Milner would do it. Milner would do it in the Liverpool team. Don't worry about that.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Henderson would as well if he was playing.
Yeah. Terry in the chat, by the way. Thanks, Trevor, for tuning in tonight. I come from Mitchell's channel initially. Says hats off to the three of us. And a big thanks for all your hard work. I think he can talk for everyone and say a fantastic few days. Many thanks to all of us, basically. And as we just said, we're going to try and organise something for Saturday as well, because obviously it's his anniversary, the 50th anniversary for that. So we're going to try and sort something out for that and keep you out for that. It'll either be on his channel or Richard's channel. We'll sort all that again. We'll sort all that out. Probably on Richard's, because it's only fair, because he started it, so may as well end the trilogy there.
Well, obviously we can sort it out for that anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if we can get anyone who played in the 71 Cup final, that would be fantastic, wouldn't it? They could get reunited with the ball, Melvin, as well.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. That's the
ball. That would be nice. George Graham. Let's get George Graham on, shall we? Let's all go out. If anybody out there got any way of contacting George Graham, good terms with him. See if he'll come on the show on Saturday and talk about the 71 FA Cup final. Because he did claim a goal that wasn't his, actually.
The equaliser, yeah.
We need to talk about that with him as well. Plus, he can see the ball that he didn't kick on that particular occasion. We can get him on. So if anyone knows George Graham, please.
He wanted to come back on, Rich.
We need to talk about this with him. He needs to clear it up. He needs to clear up that first goal in the final. We need to talk about that, because I think we all need to. We need to get to the bottom of that, because nobody has really been sure, have they, since? I think George Graham still thinks he touched it. So it'll be interesting to hear exactly what he has to say about it now, actually. So if anybody knows George Graham personally, then stick him our way and see if he'll come on Saturday. That'd be brilliant.
Yeah.
Right, good.
So, before I put the last comment before you finish up here, it's Stefan saying, I used to have a little key ring with a fold-out book of photos of the Arsenal double winning side from 71.
I said photos on my bedroom wall, actually, as the 71, the cup final and stuff like that. I got them out of a book that I had. I stuck them on my wall, on my bedroom. That was good when I was a kid. So, great. I mean, for me, this 71 double was the thing that really cemented my kind of support for Arsenal, really. Just reading about that and hearing about it and everything else is just fantastic. And to hear these stories this week has just been amazing for me personally. Absolutely brilliant.
Hopefully more to come. You never know.
Let's hope so. I mean, if we can get something sorted for Saturday, that would be absolutely fantastic. That would just top it all off for me. Top off a good week. Well, hopefully, a good week.
People are about these channels. You may be a decent one coming on Saturday as well. Oh, look what I found! Look what I found.
Oh, you found it. You found Tom's book. I'm sure you have it last night to show him. I'm sure he would have loved that. I'll put it somewhere.
I knew where it was.
Actually, I wish I found mine. It's somewhere about. I've got it. It's a good book, that, isn't it, Melvin? It's a really good book, that, isn't it?
Yeah, he's good. Yeah, he's good. He is. And he was fantastic as well last night.
No, he was. Yeah, he's always.
And we had some 3 good guests on tonight, didn't we, gentlemen? 3 good guests.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, we did. It was brilliant.
Every single one of them. Again, I said because they're all, for either players or fan perspective, they were involved in that season. It's ingrained in them because they were there, sort of thing. So again, it's not as we all kept on saying. It's fantastic to hear their own memories, because it's all well and good. We watch it back on video or read about it, but when you're listening to it from the actual person's perspective, everyone's got a different memory as well, and different perspective.
Yeah. No, it's been
the stories. I mean, my favourite story of the night was literally George Graham hiding and doing the last.
That was mine as well. That was brilliant. That was absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
Read my comment in the private chat.
Yeah, I've said that. Yeah, not said it. I've seen it. So yeah. So we'll be wrapping up soon. But also, we are doing if we are able to do a show on Saturday. I'll be digging out the 71 Cup final T-shirt I've got, which we can see in the background. So I'll be putting.
I've just got my top on with the white cannon the right way around. That's what I like.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, exactly. Yeah,
the right way around. Yeah, the right cannon, which is what I've got on my logo as well for my channel, because it's. I say the history of Arsenal is the biggest thing for me. Yes, all the games now, they're all important and we love watching them, but you can't take away all that great history, can you? And that's one of the things that's always attracted me to Arsenal, all that tradition and history that there is. I mean, Highbury, the marble halls, all that kind of stuff. You can't. How can you not fall in love with Arsenal when you see that? You know what I mean? If you ever saw the marble hall, once you go there, that's it. You can't support anybody else. You just couldn't. It'd be impossible.
No,
it's fantastic, and that's
what it's all about. Richard, I would have been happy being a commissionaire there at Highbury.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I love to have been a commissionaire at Arsenal. You think, well, what's that? No, I would have loved it just to be part of that, to be in that marble hall every day and watching people go forward and backwards and everything. Oh my God! You can feel the history coming off the walls, can't you?
Yeah. Oh yeah, just that place was just incredible, absolutely incredible. And yes, I suppose we had to move for size and stuff like that and all that kind of stuff. But the club's lost a lot of what it was, what it stood for, what it meant, and it's a shame, And this, I think, this last year or so in particular was particularly maybe brought it home even more to me how important that was, and how we didn't maybe appreciate enough at the time. You took it for granted, didn't you? You turned up at Highbury every week for the matches, and it was just your home, so you didn't really think about it too much. It's I don't know, it's a shame, but I suppose progress is progress. As Tom said, you can't change it, you can't go back. You just have to try and find ways around it, I suppose, and doing stuff like this maybe help.
And Gary's I saw that. Gary's joined us. He's having a bit of a joke at us at our expense.
That's nice, isn't it, Gary?
We're the stars. What's going on here, Gary? We're the stars.
It'd be nothing without us, would it? It'd be nothing without us. It'd be a show. What are you about?
Exactly. But with that, guys, we're going to wrap things up 20 minutes later, half hour later, whatever. But yeah. Again, massive thank you to Sammy for coming on as well, the two Martins, and obviously Richard. Again, more so Melvin for putting this all together in the first place. He had the idea. We've just come together to put it all out into fruition, basically, over our platforms. And hope again, like we said, we hope you'll get something sorted for Saturday. Yeah, and once you do know, you guys will be the first to know. Trust me on that. We'll let you know as soon as possible. And until then, guys, enjoy the rest of your evening. If you're new to the channel, you've liked what we've done tonight. Go and check out part 1 over on Richard's channel now. After you sign off.
Yeah, watch that. Good
and
show.
And we'll see you again soon. As always, up the Arsenal. Come on, you guys.
Come on.